About dissemination. What is dissemination? What do you think? So it's building upon, it's basically how you're going to package what you learn and give it to other people. So what is it and why does it matter? So basically, if you've just created some really awesome new curriculum that other people are also working on and just not getting right, you don't want them to have to keep working on it for an indefinite amount of time. You disseminating through tons of different ways, and we're going to go over the ways in just a second. All your information is going to allow those people to be able to enact best practice in their institution as well. It also encourages change. If some people say if you don't publish it, you can do it, but it's not just publications. There's different ways of disseminating, especially things like curriculum as well. And it allows feedback. If you don't show other people what you've done, you're not going to get any feedback on it. You're not going to be able to evolve it and make it better. In regards to collaboration, when you bring things like you guys all did today, well, I think almost everybody here had their poster presentation today. So that's disseminating what you guys have learned. So everything you did on your major paper so far, you put it into your paper, you showed other people, gave them an understanding of what it is you're working on. And it allows them to build on that if they want to later on. And also streamline development. So basically, like what I was saying, once you get your ideas out there, it opens it up for other people to see what you've done and to be able to work with you to make better. Clear? Planning. See, it's a tough question, but we'll go over it. So planning for dissemination starts before you start developing the curriculum. You have to know quite a bit of information during the development process so you're able to get your dissemination out there at the end. So whenever you're developing a research paper, because I'm going to use that because it was an awesome idea that you had earlier, when you talked about, yes, you can collect data, you can write it up, right? It's just as good as showing somebody, this is why my curriculum is working, here's all the data I collected, and here's my results. It gives them something concrete to look at, right? So you're planning prior to doing anything, because you have to keep in mind, well, are they going to publish my work if I haven't gotten ethical approval, if I don't have the correct information available, that I collect the right data? All that's really important. And you have to have a clear solution to a clear problem. So basically, if your goal kind of doesn't match up with what's important, right? If you're talking about, for example, to do with this, your goal is to develop healthy eating habits, but basically all the information thus far is saying, well, there's really no healthy eating issue, then it's not going to make as much of an impact. And that's part of the initial assessment that we went over with you guys right at the beginning. And also assess time management and resource utilization. That refers to planning and the actual dissemination as well. So basically making sure that you have taken into account what exactly it is that you need to get that information out there, whether or not you've given yourself enough time to write the papers or to contact who you need to contact to get the information out there. And then looking at adoption. So getting other people to take on your curriculum, either through utilizing it or building upon it, understanding why it's important over your current curriculum. Why is what you just made better, or is it just different? Really important using the SWOT analysis we talked about earlier to really come up with your strengths and your weaknesses and why people actually want to implement this over what they're already doing and what they already know. And relating it to previous experience, kind of like with what you guys mostly all know about with parents. The majority, especially adults, adult learners, for the most part, is who your curriculums are going to be for. Not in the case of ours, where you're working more with adolescents, but it still gives you an idea. You have to take into account who your population is. Okay. Ease of use, whether or not you're systematic, right? Especially if you're looking at doing a publication, for example, you have a much better chance of being published if you're taking a systematic approach. And Roger created stages of adoption, which is the gaining of knowledge, persuasion. So actually, that's your telling them why they should take on this new curriculum, why it's important. The adoption, and then the final implementation, and them actually utilizing your new curriculum. And then peer evaluation, like we discussed quite a bit, is them actually developing parts of what they found in the curriculum. Okay. And then protection. So this is going back a little bit to what I was talking about. Like if you do decide to publish something later on, you want to think way, way ahead of time, and you want to actually get institutional review boards okay your plan, right? Because you're not going to get it published without having it ethically approved. Also, checking for intellectual property. Like it says, most of the time, new curriculum would be copyrighted. So whether you have to decide whether or not you want to disseminate your new curriculum, have people just build upon it, whether or not you just want to make it free for everybody, open source it, or if you actually want to have them purchase it. And in those cases, you want to talk to a specialist, a lawyer, or somebody to talk to about the underlying factors. And then the actual dissemination itself. So in some instances, but not all the time, you want your entire curriculum disseminated. So somebody can actually use the entire thing and implement it in their organization, but sometimes they don't need to do the entire thing. Sometimes you've discovered something during the implementation phase of your curriculum. Maybe your results are very interesting. You don't always have to disseminate the entire thing. Sometimes parts of what you've learned are just as important. For example, the general needs, the targeted needs, the different assessments about what you found can sometimes be just as important as the curriculum itself. Okay, any questions? So how is this done? Kingston made this really interesting diagram. And I don't know if you can see it so well, but it's basically either you're connecting or collecting, and you're either informal or formal. And he's given some really interesting ideas. So if you're informally connecting with people, you would look into social networking, right? So that's like your Twitter, your Facebook. And then if you're looking at more formal connecting, you're talking about like virtual teams. So like if anybody belongs to an online organization for your professional interests. And then going into your collection of data, that's like your informal would be like your blogs. So where you're showing other people information you've collected. And your formal would be your lessons or your databases of information you're providing from reference sources. Okay? And so we talked about a couple of these already. You can do webinars, journal publications, press releases. There's a ton of different ways to get your information out there, even if you're just doing a presentation at a conference.
This is like a marketing thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're marketing your product. And then the resources you need, time, personnel, equipment, and funds. All those have some impact on how it is that you're going to disseminate your information, right? Some journals charge you upwards of hundreds of dollars to get your journal article published, so keeping in mind the actual cost behind And then you actually have to evaluate how you disseminate your information. Did you get your information out there like you planned? And you can do that. So for example, if you publish a journal article, you look at the impact factor. So how many times was it cited? Or some things like MedPortal, you can actually track the number of downloads your article has had. Sales, if you're selling your curriculum, you know it's going good if you're making a ton of money. All right. Any questions?